For over 70 years now, India has been on one of the most incredible missions in human history, trying to manage the population of what is now the world's biggest democracy. It's a story that's just epic in scale, filled with pioneering ideas, some really dark turns, and eventually a huge revolution in human rights.
Okay, so let's just start with the headline number, because it's staggering. As of 2023, India is officially home to about 1.44 billion people. Yep, that means it finally surpassed China to become the most populous nation on the entire planet. And that isn't just some random statistic, it's the backdrop for everything else, this colossal challenge.
And that really brings us to the core question we're going to dig into. How on earth did India navigate this path? I mean, from explosive growth to what now looks like the verge of stabilization. It's a story that tells us so much about development and democracy, not just about population numbers.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the initial billion-person problem. Then, we'll dive into the era of state control. After that, we'll see the revolution in human rights that changed everything. We'll give it a modern-day report card. And finally, we'll ask the big question. Is this a dividend or a disaster?
All right, let's jump into part one. To really get this story, you have to go back in time. When India gained its independence back in 1947, it wasn't just building a new country. It was staring down a population challenge that honestly threatened to swallow up every single bit of progress it made.
The speed of the growth was just mind-boggling. In 1950, the average woman was having nearly 6 children. That's what we call the total fertility rate, or TFR. And at a rate like that, any economic gains, any new schools or hospitals were pretty much immediately wiped out by the needs of a bigger and bigger population. That was the central problem.
So what did India do about it? Well, that brings us to the first big phase of its policy. This was an era of top-down state control. And it started with a really pioneering vision, but it took a very dark and frankly dramatic turn.
You can kind of see the whole story of this era right here. It starts in 1952, and India does something no one else had done. It launched the world's first official family planning program. Pretty forward-thinking, right? But then you fast forward to 1976, during a period of national emergency, and the policy flips to pure coercion. That led to a massive public backlash, and just a year later, a new government came in and completely reversed course, making voluntarism the core principle again.
And this is the real human cost of that policy. Just think about this number for a second. In a single year, an estimated 6.2 million people were sterilized, many of them poor, marginalized, and without any real informed consent. This dark chapter left a deep, deep scar on the public's trust, and it became this powerful lesson on the limits of using state force, especially in a democracy.
But that terrible lesson, it actually paved the way for a complete revolution in how India, and really the whole world, thought about population. This was the great paradigm shift, moving away from control and towards rights.
The big turning point came in 1994. There was this landmark UN conference in Cairo, and India signed on. And this agreement fundamentally changed the conversation. Suddenly, it wasn't about hitting demographic targets set by the government anymore. It was about protecting individual human rights.
And the contrast really is like night and day. The old way was all about population control, state-driven demographic targets, and sometimes, as we saw, coercion. The new way, the one pushed by Cairo, was all about reproductive rights, focusing on individual choice, empowering people, especially women, and basing everything on human rights.
So India took this new philosophy and basically baked it into its official national population policy in the year 2000. This was the new playbook. It officially got rid of sterilization targets, a huge deal. It introduced what they called a cafeteria approach, which just means offering a whole menu of contraceptive choices so people could pick what's right for them. And so importantly, it put women's empowerment and, for the first time, adolescent health right at the center of the whole strategy.
Okay, so that all sounds great, right? But did this new rights-based approach actually work? Let's get to our modern-day report card, because what we see is a mix of incredible historic successes and some really deep, stubborn challenges that are still there today.
And here it is, the headline success. India's national fertility rate has dropped to 2.0. I mean, this is a truly historic milestone. It's actually below the replacement level of 2.1, that's the magic number where a population just replaces itself. So what this means is that, on average, India as a whole has achieved population stabilization.
But the most important part of this story is how it happened. Unlike, say, China's coercive one-child policy, India's fertility decline happened inside a democratic and voluntary system. It's really this powerful proof that things like development, education, and empowerment are the best contraceptives in the long run.
But that national average of 2.0, well, it hides a much more complicated reality. You have this massive regional imbalance. So, while a state in the south like Kerala has a fertility rate way below replacement level, a northern state like Bihar is still up around 3.0. This is probably the biggest challenge today. It's like you have one country moving at two totally different demographic speeds.
And then there's this other really deep challenge, gender bias. Look at these numbers. The burden of family planning in India falls almost completely on women. Female sterilization makes up about 37% of all contraceptive methods. And what about male sterilization? A simpler, safer procedure? Less than 0.5%. It's just a stark, undeniable reflection of deep-seated inequality.
So, with all that in mind, where does this leave India's future? Well, this brings us to our final section, and it poses a really high-stakes question about the country's gigantic youth population. Is it a dividend, or is it a disaster in the making?
First off, what even is a demographic dividend? You hear this term all the time. Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's an economic idea. When you have a youth bulge, meaning more people of working age than you have kids and seniors, you get this potential window for supercharged economic growth. And with the world's largest youth population, India is smack dab in the middle of that window right now.
But, and this is a huge but, this dividend is not guaranteed. It's not automatic. It's totally conditional. To actually cash in on it, India has to do 3 things, and do them well. Educate its massive youth population, equip them with the skills that today's economy actually needs, and, this is the big one, create enough good quality jobs for them.
And this brings us right to the final, critical question. This 70-year journey has brought India to this exact moment, a moment of unbelievable opportunity. The entire future of the world's most populous nation really hinges on this. Can it turn all this human potential into a real dividend for its people, or will it risk it all becoming a demographic disaster? The clock is absolutely ticking.